So, we have the last panel. I know you guys are flagging, but if you could give your lovely attention and warm welcome with a round of applause to Rune.
Hello, everybody. So, my name is Rune Østgård. I'm from Norway. I'm usually a lawyer, but I've also written a few books. A book about inflation, which is called Fraud Coin, 1,000 Years with Inflation as a Policy. And a book about geopolitics, globalization, is called Unbar. It was released actually last year. And now we are about to release a book on Bitcoin, which is called Arrow of Truth. Today, I'm here to talk about two of my favorite topics, and that's fighting for freedom and winning the battle of ideas. So, I come from a region in Norway called Trøndelag, and we call ourselves Trønders. And our schools, they don't teach us what the word Trønder means. And actually it means strong and fertile. And in addition, our schools, they don't teach us that our royal sagas said that the Trønders never lost a battle. So, neither do they teach us about the fact that we used to have monetary freedom right up until 1050 AD, meaning that we could use all types of money that we liked back then. So we used coins from all over Europe, basically. And they don't teach us either that we had something called the resistance provisions, which I'll come back to later and try to explain why these legal principles made it possible to defend our freedom the way we could. And furthermore, the schools don't teach us about the belief system that we had back then in the Viking Age that made it possible for us to have monetary freedom and these special resistance provisions. So since the schools don't teach this to us, to my fellow Trønders, then somebody else has to do it, so that somebody happens to be me. So I'm going to zone in on one key principle, a principle that we have to respect when we fight for freedom. And this principle is everyone must fight. Each and every one of us must fight if we want to have, for instance, the freedom to use, transact in, and give away Bitcoin. The reason is that what we call free riders, people who piggyback on others, they make it so much heavier a burden for those who choose to fight. It makes it much more difficult to win a battle. We've seen an onslaught from governments against Bitcoin lately. You have probably seen that. And it shows that we are in the then they fight you stage at the moment. They probably understand, the politicians, the government, that they are in no position anymore to kill Bitcoin. But they can harm Bitcoin, and they do this by gaslighting the people, which causes many people to avoid buying Bitcoin, and thereby it delays adoption. When adoption is delayed, it means that it takes more time before we can allow Bitcoin to set us free. And also, in the process, we know that when many people aren't able to get back their freedom, actually many people will die in the process while we are waiting to become free again. Before I talk more about fighting, I will share a personal story with you. When I was 4 years old, some kids in the kindergarten, they bullied me for my red hair. And my mother tried to comfort me, and she said, "But Rune, you don't have red hair, it's copper brown." Well, do you think that stopped the bullying? Of course it didn't. And the kindergarten felt like hell to me. But one day I came home, and I said to my mother, I ripped the beanie off my head and said, "Look here, Mommy, my hair is what people call red. Nobody calls it copper brown." And the next day, when I came back to kindergarten, the other kids, they understood that I had accepted the truth and that it didn't bother me anymore. And just like magic, the bullying stopped. My mother has told me this story many times, and she said that she's certain that it helped change my life, my personality forever. I think the way I handled it, the experience I got from it, taught me two things. First, it taught me that not accepting facts comes with a significant cost. And second, if you embrace the truth will set you free. Just think about that for a moment. A 4-year-old boy understands that the truth will set him free. That's quite a powerful image, isn't it? So over the years that followed, with the schools that dumbed me down, like most of you probably experienced, I stopped asking questions, I stopped being curious, searching for the truth. So I think I lost myself a little bit. But why is it so important to search for the truth? Well, since, in my opinion at least, that the monetary system is the most important social construction that we have as a civilization, it's very important to search for the truth, because if you don't truly understand how the monetary system works, then you won't understand how the world works. And furthermore, if you don't embrace truth, you won't be able to understand what it takes to fight for freedom. Simple as that. In my search for truth about money, I've ended up using a simple analytical framework, and it works like this. Civilization scales in layers. Layer 0 is the people's belief system, and layer 1, which builds on layer 0, is the monetary system. All of the other layers above, which builds on layer 0 and 1, the government, laws, taxes, demography, and so forth, they develop in very different ways in different societies which have different belief systems and monetary systems. Thinking like a slave is a quite typical belief system today. And a person who thinks like a slave, he gives up his freedom and sovereignty, and he's unwilling to fight for his own, to protect, to take care of his own security. And a society with many people who think like slaves is normally full of free riders. Both the quote-unquote slaves and the masters, they hope to get something for nothing. So a person who thinks like a slave, he typically wants to have food, shelter, education, and medical treatment in exchange for giving up his freedom and sovereignty. And it's like longing for being in a prison where you can have all of this for free. Well, the people who think like masters, they are also free riders because they want the slaves to work for them. A society with many people who think like slaves always ends up having somebody who controls the monetary system, basically someone who monopolizes the control of the monetary system. And what they do is actually that then they put themselves in a position where they can create money out of nothing, as you know. And when they are in this position, they become able to buy up all the resources they need in order to put the people under their thumb. So in this way, a monopoly over the monetary system, it enables the ruler to centralize even more wealth and political power, and over time it enables control of the people's behavior, and gradually it tears down civilization. Few countries have a population with a more prevalent slave mentality than Norway, my country today. And our political elite has had a monetary monopoly for almost 1,000 years now. The result is the following terrible combination. We pay the highest taxes in the whole world, and we also have the highest debt-to-income ratio in the whole world. My fellow countrymen, they believe that they are free, but they are actually slaves to two masters, a bank and the state. If you think like a free man, you understand that you must protect your own sovereignty and your freedom, and that you have to take care of your security on your own. And the way you do this is by cooperating with others who share the same values as you. Free men also have an I'll cover your back mentality, and they understand that piggybacking on others without doing anything yourself to protect your freedom, that's unethical. In a society where many people think like free men, the society will typically reclaim or protect a system of monetary freedom where they can use the money they like best. And this type of society promotes cooperation on all levels. In this way, over time, you will see that you get capital formation and that it's possible for everybody to prosper. So over time, the monetary system starts looking like the most beautiful and powerful social network that the human race has ever created. As I said, my ancestors had some legal principles called the resistance provisions. And it worked like this. If a king just took someone's property without the consent of the people's assembly, all of the Trønders, my people, were obliged to kill the king. That's a quite harsh penalty for stealing, I think. But this was quite special at our time. But I think many other societies, free societies, have had the same principles. So I think that the main idea here was that people understood that they owed their freedom to their ancestors and that they had an obligation to pass it on to the next generations. And if they just gave an inch to ruthless kings, they would lose their freedom momentarily. In addition to being forced or obliged to protect your own people, sort of a general conscription in service of the people instead of the state, they were also obliged to pass on the bidding stick, which carried the message about the hunt down of the king. So they just planted it in the front door of their neighbor's house. And everybody participated in this freedom fight. If you weren't able to go to the battle itself, you helped out in other ways. For instance, the elderly, the children, and the housewives, perhaps they prepared the food and all the other supplies that the soldiers needed. And when the men went to hunt down the king, all of the rest would have to work much harder in order to be able to survive in the society. So everybody did what they could. The key takeaway from the society back in the Viking Age in my area was that the resistance provisions prohibited free riding. In 1050, a great shame happened upon my people in Trøndelag, because suddenly decided that they shouldn't make use of the resistance provisions. And then a king, a ruthless king named Harald Hardråde, he was able to set up his monetary monopoly. And what he did then was he required everybody to use the coins that he made in the mint, and if the people didn't accept the coins as payment, he would punish them by death, killing them effectively. And Harald Hardråde, he started debasing the coins, reducing the silver content of the coins, and thereby increasing his wealth and political power. He probably made a fortune due to his monetary debasement. However, it ended very badly because he tried to conquer England, and in 1066 AD, he himself and 5,000 men died in the Battle of Stamford Bridge. It's a perfect example of the link between war and monetary monopoly. I believe most stateless societies have had similar resistance provisions as we had in Trøndelag, and I suspect this was the reason why the Irish so effectively defended themselves against the English. And it seems like they managed to protect the monetary freedom much longer than we did in Norway. After the American rebels won their independence in 1783, they also introduced monetary freedom in America. They kept this principle until 1857, when they made the mistake of letting the Congress pass the Coinage Act. But they continued to have competing bank currencies until 1914. Argentina, they also introduced monetary freedom after their revolution in 1816. And they used foreign currencies and let the banks issue private currencies. And this was a system that they made use of until very early in the 20th century. And you probably know Javier Milei, the new president of Argentina. He used to say that he wants Argentina to reclaim, to go back to a system with monetary freedom. He also said that people must stop thinking like slaves, and that he wants to wake up the lions. So Milei, he clearly understands the relationship between the belief system and the monetary system. In my opinion, it was the monetary freedom that was established in Argentina and in the United States that pulled so many millions out of poverty. These two countries basically became an escape hatch for people all over the world, people who suffered in countries which had a ruler which abused their inflation policies. I guess many of you, just like me, have been part of a group or something where you were used to all of the people around you protecting each other, working to protect each other. A story about how I had to get rid of my fear for physical conflicts can be instructive. In 1994, I just decided to jump straight into it and start working as a doorman to get rid of my phobia. And my co-workers at the nightclub Garage and we had this "I'll cover your back" principle as sort of the first thing we will always think about in situations. And this made ourselves feel secure, always, even in the dangerous situations. Free riding was out of the question. And this was basically, for me, the best job I've ever had. So, when I finished law school in 1998, I had to try to control my fear of public speaking. And I had learned that the fuck around and find out principle was the best way to learn how to deal with your phobias. So I started out working a lot in the courts, which sort of improved my skills a little bit. And over time, I overcame my fear for doing this kind of stuff. In 2002, I discovered Austrian economics. Hayek and Rothbard, they totally changed my worldview and made me understand freedom and also how the world works. I can't really beat deep down in the rabbit hole, but I didn't have anybody to talk to about this. And a sort of a personal crisis in 2010, which was directly related to me having a different worldview than the people around me who were near and dear to me, it made me go back to sort of become a normie again. It was a big, big mistake. It was very self-destructive, but I did this for almost 12 years until I launched the Fraud Coin book, my book about inflation. Because then the Bitcoiners, you guys, you reached out to me, embraced my book, and also me, and it made me understand where I come from, what I'm really made of. So I think you really helped to save me. Then, just 2 months ago, I met a person who pinned me against the wall and said, "But you are still not true to yourself." And this was a very important wake-up call. Suddenly I realized that I had to respect the truth again. Very important for me. So these experiences, learning about the value of truth, battling my phobias, and learning about Bitcoin, money, and how the world works, it sort of has made me conclude that I'm here to be a rebel and to fight together with you in the battle for the right to own Bitcoin. So despite my weaknesses and flaws, I want to do this together with you. I want you guys to wake up, to lead your prides, to be the lions that Javier Milei talks about, and go out and spread the freedom message and teach people about the importance of Bitcoin. So if you found some inspiration in what I've said today, I suggest you start with the following. Check your belief system. Do you think like a free man, or do you think like a slave? And do you accept the principle that everyone must fight? Or do you think that it's okay to piggyback on others' efforts? If you want to join me in the fight, the question is, how do you fight? Well, stacking sats certainly isn't enough. How do you think a Trønder would react 1,000 years ago if someone said that, well, I fight just by stacking gold coins? I think the reaction to that would be quite negative. So there are so many ways that you can fight for Bitcoin. You can teach others self-custody. You can cover your local community with stickers, posters, and graffiti, go to meetups, create meetups, and so forth. The list is endless, but the most important thing, I think, is to be proud of being a Bitcoiner, just like I'm being proud of rediscovering what it means to be a Trønder. If you are scared for doing this, being open about Bitcoin and fighting for your cause, I think you should remember the principle of fighting, of trying to fuck around and just find out what it means to be a freedom fighter. There's no better learning way than this. Finally, a few words about why I do this. I believe that my daughter and the rest of the kids, they own the freedom, the future, and we owe them to give the freedom that they deserve. And I want Bitcoin, the Bitcoin community, and the Bitcoin economy to become an escape hatch for them. if you want to do this, to fight together with me, I'll promise you I'll cover your back. So let's fucking do this. And thanks for listening.